So let's say you found a skeleton. How would you tell if it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody! Welcome to Knockoff Hovind, Dapper Reacts 59. I am here with Vishanti, and yeah, I did screw up the should the opening come on immediately, or should I have to wait a few seconds while I hunt for it in my list of sources? We'll take a drink for that.
He also, didn't tell me, hey, 10 seconds, whatever. So here I am in the middle of a sentence.
That's okay, I muted you until you were done with the sentence, so no one could hear the sentence.
Wow. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Alright.
Hey
Yeah.
everybody, how's it going? Yeah, Spheremonger, the wrong earther says. Also, Dapper's quite the professional. Drink. Yeah, no, we did. But
Listen, there have been quite a few people having professional moments in the last 24 hours on their live streams, so maybe something's in the air. I don't know.
Could be on. Maybe it's coming through the internet, and it's like some kind of memetic hazard for people who do live streams.
Somebody call the SCP Foundation.
I need some amnestics. Maybe class B. Alright, Darklaw Dragon joined the channel at the tetrapod level. That was a little while ago. I think that was sometime around like 9 a.m. or so. But then around 11 a.m., Alessandra name is trailing off, so let me pull up a different view so I can... Oh, no, of course. Thanks, YouTube. You just erased it. Great. Alessandra Hedgeblog Thurbin. There we go. Gifted 5 memberships that went to Helen R., Bugged Out, Bruce Davis, Alexander Dankert, and Michael. So we'll take 5 drinks for that too. And by the way, I am drinking a margarita for a reason I will explain after I take the 5 drinks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. DM and his deplorable ilk DM Wing and his deplorable ilk says, do you have an unlabeled paste bin of sources? No. I have a labeled source dump at the bottom of my video descriptions. That's what I do. It's a step above an unlabeled paste bin, but not by a lot, if I'm being honest. But then again, when I do reference a paper, and I think it's actually very important, I do, in the actual audio of the video, give you the name of the author, the publication time, and sorry, and the publication, like the name of the actual publication it's published in. So there is that. Roasting a transmissible parasitic dog killer for $1.99 says, so who was the discount bent in the stream? I guess that technically makes it Vishanti.
I'm the 99-cent version of bent.
Well, that's okay, because you know what? I'm a cheapskate, so it works. I mean, I give him way more money than I give you.
I'm the Temu version of bent.
There you go, yeah. Alright, so why am I drinking a margarita for this when normally I would be drinking, like, maybe a coffee? Maybe a spiked coffee, but, like, you know, not normally, like, a 12.5% ABV margarita. Here's why. I was all ready last night to get some frames off of my render farm, turn it into a video, then this morning, wake up, turn that into a real video that you guys can watch. And so I did all those things, right? Except it took me until like 2 a.m. for all those frames to come in, and for me to be able to set the thing to render and go to bed. So then this morning, I woke up, and I shuffled over to my computer, and I hit render on the final video. And then I went to go watch the video. It turns out somehow, in my first render, I'd slid my my animation strip over to the right a little bit. So not only did my video start with like a second and a half of just black screen, it also had like a second and a half delay in the audio sync. So I had to redo it, which means that that video is not coming out today. And then I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to the grocery store and I'm buying tequila. Exactly. So this is my consolation prize, is this tequila for having done such a terrible job editing somehow. Which is a weird mistake. I don't think I've ever made that mistake before, but like, it happened. Now I have to deal with it. So, yeah. In the meantime, though, we're going to talk about Dino Dave. And also, Vishanti, what wonderful thing are you wearing on your ear right now?
Oh, this is a feather ear cuff by thochtlywear.com.
And how can people make sure that they see it again?
They get to super chat a mysterious number that I don't disclose until after the stream.
Okay. You should disclose it to me in the private chat so I know when to say whether or not we're getting close. Got it. All right. Well, for $10 or 10 euros, I'm sorry. Tunic8 Geek says, I was just wondering what I'm going to do tonight with my girl out of town and nothing to do. There's Dapper with a nice stream and Vicious here too. Gonna grab One Piece. Gonna grab my One Piece manga. Got it. And hit like. Nice. Thank you very much. All right. The One Piece wasn't capitalized, and so I thought it was this like part of the sentence of like one piece of my mind. What? And I was like, oh no, it's the One Piece. 'Cause I know that. I'm a geek.
So, anime fans, I would like to announce that I finally got Dapper to start watching Hellsing Ultimate with me this week.
Yep.
And it seems like he's digging it so far, so
What are we like about a third of the way through? A little bit more?
yeah, give or take. I think we're on episode 5. We're about to start episode 5 whenever we next watch stuff.
Asavolpus, Novum Cautus existed before more Japanese, and I'm going to go for you. Sorry. Who's been a member for 12 months and is at the annual level says, I'm playing the game today with soda instead of alcohol, so in honor of that, AIG is a bottle of... Take a drink for that. Right, so Dino Dave. This guy is basically knockoff Hovind, right? He uses a lot of Hovind slides. He uses a lot of art he stole from Hovind. He also uses a lot of art he stole from AIG. Although, to be fair, you can't technically steal that art from Hovind, because he has given unlimited permission for it to be reproduced and used in any way anyone sees fit. But still, it's Hovind's art. Or at least Hovind's art team's art. I don't think Hovind sat there and drew those cartoons. I think he had a cartoonist way back in the day.
And he didn't credit them at any point.
No, but then again, they also might not have asked for credit, because that's a thing that sometimes happens in Christian ministries, where people are like, no, I'm just doing this for the glory of the Lord. I don't want credit.
Oh, yeah.
And like, okay, I mean, if you actively don't want to be credited, I don't want you to be credited. Like, want to be anonymous, that's fine. Also, I want to say thank you to Savage Cobra, who got me an ale horn.
Thank you. That reminds me.
I used it earlier, and it was ridiculous and impractical, and I love everything about it.
Yeah, thank you to Savage Cobra, who sent me a pair of shoes from my wish list, which I desperately needed because my other pair of walking shoes had completely worn through. I am very rough on shoes, apparently, and these hadn't gotten to the point where the soles had, like, ripped off, but they were starting to get real bad.
Do you just stomp everywhere?
Thanks, Savage Cobra.
Is that what's happening? Do you shuffle your shoes against the ground? What do you do that they wear out so fast?
It's just that, like, the sidewalks are really, really rough, and when you walk on them, it just wears the sole down, like, really quick.
Okay.
So.
All right. All right, so we are going to take a look at Dino Dave. We're going to go through the drinking rules real quick. Let's see. As you've seen, if I screw up the production, we'll take a drink. If any of you super chat or milestone chat anything to the effect of AIG or a bag of dicks, we'll take a drink. If you super chat or milestone chat anything with any of the kaiju emoji, we'll take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink for each gifted membership up to, like, a certain level. And then we'll just finish the drink and I'll go get another one. And we'll also take a drink if Dino Dave says anything too stupid. We just kind of have to. We'll take a drink if Dino Dave says something that's factually accurate and he's not just quoting it from something. We'll take a drink if Dino Dave tells a story that didn't happen or a joke that doesn't land. We'll take a drink if Dino Dave confuses what we can know just from the skeleton of Lucy versus what we can know about any larger taxon to which she belongs. That's called an ad hominid. It can only happen once per stream. We'll also take a drink if Dino Dave cites a source. We check the source, and rather than just not supporting him, which they almost never do, if it actively contradicts him, take a drink for that. That's called a Trojan source. We'll also take a drink if either I or Vishanti can predict what's going to be coming up next where it doesn't seem very obvious. And we'll also take a drink if Dino Dave mentions that group of German guys who were in charge back in, parts of the 1930s and 40s in Germany, right? Like, I'm sure there were German people in other countries who were in charge of things, right? So, but that's not who we're talking about. I'm pretty sure I could find, like, a German-American general or something in World War II. So, yeah. Have I missed any that anyone can think of?
I'm sure will be reminded.
Yeah, probably. All right, for $5, Nine Finished Life says, 3 times shared and 5 times liked. Team Journey and Associates viral marketing for the win. Thank you very much. Titalac Rosie for 20,000 Vietnamese dong says, AIG is a collection of priapulid worm specimens. Nice. I'll take a drink for that. Anyone who's wondering, yeah, the common name for the priapulid worms is penis worms. And they are, in fact, named after Priapus, an ancient Greek god of really big penises. So big that he often had to support them with a rope or something that he would hold so that it didn't just drag around. So, yeah. Also how you get the medical term priapism, which is when an erection doesn't go away.
Uh-huh.
Fun times with Dapper. We're getting way into the weeds on really weird stuff really early into the stream. Here we go. Here's Dino Dave.
Jurassic limestone and 600 million year old Cambrian limestone.
Yes, well, how do we tell the difference? So we went over this a little bit earlier, but actually it's pretty easy to tell the difference, and it's because the limestone that you see deposited normally in places that aren't like caves and whatnot tends to be biogenic limestone, right? So when you have limestone that dissolves into a cave and then it gets deposited as like a stalagmite or a stalactite or something like that, that's not going to have this property because that's been chemically dissolved into water and redeposited somewhere else and it's lost its internal structure. But biogenic limestone, which is by far the predominant limestone on Earth, is actually physically composed of the shells of ancient sea life. And so, since we know, on the basis of both stratigraphy as well as radiometric dating, which fossils are found at which ages, if you in fact look at the limestone, which is basically just solidly built of fossils, you can check to see which species of plankton went to make up the limestone. And on that basis, you can then determine whether it's Cambrian or Jurassic or Cretaceous or Permian or Silurian or Devonian or whatever else. So yeah, it's actually pretty easy as long as you have a microphone and microscope, and you know your index fossils. Roasting a transmissible parasitic dog collar for $4.99 says AIG is an oozing sack of septic, nearly necrotic phalanges. I don't think phalanges technically works there, but I'm going to go for it, and it's also really gross.
Woof.
Here we go.
It just looks like limestone.
Yeah, unless you put it under a microscope there, Dino Dave. Can we just call him Dave?
Yeah,
Okay, we'll just call him Dave.
I'm down.
How do they know the difference just from looking at these stones? Does
They don't. They do it with a microscope, buddy.
anybody know? Okay, the fossil record, very good.
I
Typically,
love how
people
he's
will
just
say,
asking the audience as if someone's like, actually,
Yeah,
I'm a geologist.
you know, I did one time go to a creationist conference as like a plant, and it was I was living out in Washington, and some local church was going to have some creation speaker, and so me and a couple of my friends who were all this is long before I did YouTube, but we were all sort of like loosely aware of like creationism and counter creationism as a thing. We went there and asked some rather pertinent questions. One of my friends won the Raffle Door Prize, so which was a creationist book. So she just took that home. I have no idea what she did with it.
Okay.
But and then we asked some questions, and some people came by and were like, "Oh, hey, you seem to be really informed about this. Are there any other places you think we should probably look for information about this?" So we were like, "You should check out Talk Origins, creationist. Just check that out. It was fun. I'd do it again."
Awesome.
maybe it's radiometric dating, and not
I mean, it is radiometric dating. It's just not directly of the limestone.
typically sedimentary layers, but more igneous layers, volcanic layers, this type of thing.
Igneous layers, volcanic layers. It's kind of the same thing, buddy.
They do use radiometric dating, but these basic methods for dating the rocks were established long before radiometric dating came along.
These basic methods of relative dating, and it's important that we note relative, right? So, for instance, if we say, I'm older than Vishanti. Okay. How old does that make me? you don't have an answer to that question. You just know it's more than Vishanti. But if you don't know how old she is, then you don't know the answer to either of those questions. All you can say is that when you're comparing the two of us, I'm the older one. Now, granted, you happen to know that because I'm 150 million years old, and chances are Vishanti isn't. But, you know, that's... If you didn't have that information. And then let's say we added in Dr. Kip Davis. And we say that I'm older than Kip Davis, but Kip Davis is older than Vishanti, and there you go. Now we have relative dating. Do you know how old any of us are? No. But you know which order we go in. And that's important on its own, is to know whether something is younger or older in terms of geology. But it's not the same thing as knowing how absolutely old they are. So we have to remember the difference between relative and absolute dating. Stratigraphy and things like that, that gets you a relative date. This is older than that. Using radiometric dating can get you a absolute age. Now, we have other techniques, for instance, dendrochronology, right? If we can tie dendrochronology to some other dating technique, then the dendrochronology record can actually be used as an absolute dating technique. But there are numerous places in the world where there are what's called floating chronologies, which is to say, we have this dendrochronology timeline, but we can't actually tie it to a particular date. So we know that within this dendrochronology timeline, some things happen before and some things after. We even know by how much they occur before and after, but we can't assign an absolute date to any of those because we don't have anything that ties that dendrochronological record to a particular time. We can give an estimate based on things like carbon dating of the wood or something, but it's not going to be as exact as when we say, like, okay, well, we found this timber in a house in Chartres, France, that we happen to know based on municipal records was built in 1432. So, and we can slot it into our dendrochronological records. So now we have that as a firm date in our dendrochronology. But we can't do that with all of our records. So now that I've gone on way too long about relative versus absolute
Fascinating
dating,
tangent. Thanks, Dapper.
it's what I do.
Yep.
Even back to the time of Darwin.
Ooh.
See, and they do it by something called index fossils. That is, they look at particular fossils that they think only lived in a particular time.
They think only lived in a particular time. Okay.
All right, yeah, we're going to take a
Dave, you're
drink. We're going to explain what that actually means.
brother.
So, a good index fossil is one that has a wide geographical distribution, which means you can find it basically anywhere on the surface of the Earth, or, well, any place you go to, right? You can find them in Russia, you can find them in China, you can find them in Australia, you can find them in South America, North America, wherever you are. But only a narrow extent vertically. So, vertically corresponds to time, no matter who you are, right? Even young Earth creationists think that the lower rocks, unless you're Kent Hovind, because he's too stupid to figure any of this out. So, other than Kent Hovind, maybe, the creationists even agree that the lower rocks were deposited earlier. They just tend to think it was earlier in the flood. That doesn't make sense for a whole lot of reasons, but we're not going to get into it right now. So, if something exists across a wide geography, but only in a narrow band vertically, that means that the fossils are only found during a certain small window of time relative to the time it took to deposit the entire geological column. And it means that if you find that thing there, you know that whatever else you find in that same stratum was laid down during the window when that organism is also laid down. Now, in science, we think of that as being a period of usually a few 100,000 to a few million years. There's really no good explanation for it under the flood model. Basically, they just go with hydrological sorting, except that hydrological sorting doesn't actually explain it because they're not, index fossils aren't sorted hydrologically. So, I mean, just the fact that these things exist is on its own a bit of a problem for young Earth creationism. But hey, Roasting a Transmissible Parasitic Dog Killer for $4.99 says, a layer of biogenic limestone below a layer of igneous rock, top of the layer of metamorphic rock. Explain that, Flutters. Yeah, no, there's no way to explain that. In order for that to happen, the limestone would have to have been lithified. And it takes a really long time to lithify limestone. And limestone lithification actually releases heat. There's enough limestone that has lithified on Earth to actually cause its own heat problem just by itself, if it all had to lithify in a year.
I love how the heat problem just keeps getting worse.
Yeah,
for
actually,
creationists.
Erica Gutsa-Gibbon, she ran the numbers on this, and she compared the estimated number of bolides to ever collide with Earth, so that's like asteroids and comets and whatnot, and the amount of heat they would release, versus the amount of heat that would be released by the lithification of all known limestone. All known limestone it won. That would produce more heat than all of the asteroid and comet collisions that have ever happened put together.
Well,
Yeah, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse.
And if that type of fossil was in there, they say, well, we know it only lived for maybe during the Jurassic, okay? So talking about dinosaurs, perhaps, a particular type of dinosaur.
Generally speaking, vertebrates are not used as index fossils, with very few exceptions. Index fossils tend to be things like plankton, occasionally mollusks, like phytoplankton, I mean, when I say plankton. Yeah, occasionally mollusks, things like that. There are a few vertebrate or even tetrapod index fossils. Like I believe there's one species of aedosaur that is a index fossil for a certain part of the Triassic, and it's just because its scutes were shed all the time, and so its scutes are just a super common find in a lot of areas on land, but only for a narrow amount of time. But like for the most part, you're not tending to use vertebrates, and especially not tetrapods, as index fossils. Let's see. Astrovulpus novum caudus existed before Japanese Ryu. For $9.99, says, dang, 1 year. Also, the kanji of my name reads Otogizoshi. Otogizoshi. Alright. And they're basically fairy tales. Vulpus novum caudus is my jank species name for, well, a yokai that exists according to Young Earth creationists. Wait, is there Young Earth creationists yokai exist actual as a thing? Or is that based on me telling that joke about how if creationists think that all these stories about like mythical creatures are real, then what about like various Japanese yokai, like the one that like sucks your guts out through your butt after it drowns you? Is that a real thing too? Or like the one that looks like a person except it has an eyeball instead of an anus? Is that real too? They definitely made that gag. Because, hey, I don't know if you guys know, but Japanese yokai get super weird.
Yep.
Like super, super weird.
And then it went extinct. So it didn't evolve to Jurassic, and then it went extinct. So if we find it...
It didn't evolve to Jurassic, and then it went extinct. I'm going to take a drink. That doesn't mean anything.
Buddy.
That's not a phrase.
Congrats on the English language.
Yeah.
That's an index fossil to tell you that rock is Jurassic.
Also, index fossils tend to be much more narrow than just Jurassic. Because the narrower the vertical extent, the better for an index fossil. So usually it would be something like, well, that's the late whatever stage of the Jurassic, not just Jurassic.
Does that make sense? So, for example, here's some of your index fossils, and you see things, okay, a trilobite.
These aren't index fossils. These are just fossils that are illustrative of the kind of macroscopic organisms at the time. For instance, humans aren't an index fossil. That's not a thing. Also, I don't even know what that thing below the Triceratops is supposed to be. Is that a crocodile? I don't know.
I don't know. It looks like a Pokemon.
Now, some of these might actually be index fossils, but that's not why they're on this, right? Like we have this, you got this brachiopod in the lower left in yellow. There are brachiopods that are, index fossils. Various trilobites are also index fossils. So some of these might actually end up being index fossils, but that's not why they're on this list. Also, is that just a caterpillar in the bottom center? Because there are no Paleozoic caterpillars. But that sure is what it looks like. In like the whitish blue.
It is a caterpillar. Oh my god.
Alright, I'm going to take a drink for a Precambrian or Cambrian caterpillar, because that's not a thing.
And it looks like whatever's below the Triceratops, it looks like an alligator. Or maybe a crocodile.
That's why I said, is it a crocodile? Roasting a transmissible parasitic dog killer for $1.99 says, only dinosaurs lived in the Jurassic. Yeah, that reminds me, it's not out in public access yet, but it's been in early access for a little while, and there's this Catholic Young Earth creationist named Pam Acker.
And those videos were painful.
She went on and on about how come no one tells you that things other than dinosaurs lived in the Mesozoic? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, the pictures, they always only have dinosaurs. So I'm like, okay, look, here's a picture of a dinosaur, but with insects. Oh, look, here's a dinosaur, but with a proto-mammal. Oh, look, here's a dinosaur eating a fish. What are you talking about? This has never been the case. No one has ever been like, no, we need to only have dinosaurs in our Mesozoic paintings. Anyway.
I've got a trilobite here. This is an actual fossil that...
That is not a trilobite, my dude. That is a coelacanth. I thought it was dumb when Kent Hovind thought that isopods were trilobites, despite the fact that, trilobites are chelicerates and not mandibulates like isopods. But calling this a trilobite is much, much, much worse. So,
Look, World of Science said it was 60.
Oh, he's holding it. Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Oh, well, we already took the drink. I'm not going to take the drink back, but at least that makes more sense.
Or 600 million years ago, so it's got to be 600 million years old, right? Trilobite, index fossil, Cambrian, 600 million years old. Well, here is a lobe-finned fish. And in this particular diagram, you see the lobe-finned fish was considered an index fossil. The rocks that contained that were 80 million years.
Mm-hmm.
Is there more than one species of coelacanth?
There are hundreds of species of coelacanth.
Do they all live at the same time?
No. And he even said lobe-finned fish. Lobe-finned fish evolved sometime around like the Silurian. And you know when they went extinct?
Huh.
Do you know when lobe-finned fish went extinct?
I love how you're asking me this as if I know, like, specifics about biology like that.
Oh, it's never. They've never gone extinct. So if you think lobe-finned fish is on its own an index fossil, then it's an index fossil for what? Everything after the Silurian? That's a whole lot. That's kind of a useless index fossil, isn't it? It's like, oh, look, we found a lobe-finned fish. Well, I guess it's not Cambrian. Yeah, I guess it's not. Good job.
Oh.
Years old. It's going back to the time of the dinosaurs, these lobe-finned fishes. And then somebody that didn't know any better, a fisherman caught one alive off the coast of South Africa. Well, now what does it mean if you find a rock with a lobe-finned fish? It doesn't mean anything. It could have been yesterday, right?
No, because that's Latimeria. Latimeria is a specific genus with 2 species that only is known to exist in the present day. If you find any other genus of coelacanth, you have not found Latimeria. And you know what none of the fossil genera of coelacanth are? That's right, Latimeria, because it's only known from modern extant examples. And if you go broader...
And also, you wouldn't find a rock with a coelacanth in it and think, oh, that's yesterday. No one would think that.
Yeah. Oh, and Titillac Rosie for 20,000 dong says, is the Titillac a lobe-finned fish? Yes. Well, I mean, Tiktaalik is. Titillac is just something that apparently Andrew Snelling says when he can't figure out how to say Tiktaalik, because I honestly don't know why.
And so what happens is there's a lot of speculation about when these...
Oh, by the way, fun fact. Vishanti, you're a lobe-finned fish. Congratulations.
Thanks.
So am I.
Worked hard on it.
I mean, you didn't. Your parents did. Your mom especially.
No, they didn't.
Well, in terms of gestation.
Well, maybe.
Hey, you know what? Pregnancy is no joke. So, she definitely went through that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here.
Correct.
Things evolved and when they went extinct. And really, at the end of the day, it's circular reasoning. That is, they date the rock layers by the fossils that are found in it, and then they say, well, these things were in the lower layers, evolved into these things, evolved into these things, evolved into these things, and that proves evolution. Well, if you're using evolution to date the rock layers, then yes, it's going to prove evolution. It's circular reasoning.
You remember that time that earlier he was mentioning the radiometric dating? Because that is what breaks the circularity. But you know the other thing that breaks the circularity? Stratigraphy.
Mm-hmm.
So, while it is true that it sounds circular, if all you hear is, well, we checked to see what the date of this rock was on the basis of index fossils, and that's how we know how old other fossils are. That sounds circular, because that very neatly breaks down into, we date the rocks by the fossils and the fossils by the rocks, which is what Kent Hovind loves to say. And it's the same point that Dino Dave is making. Except that, oh, wait, how do we determine which index fossils went with which strata? Well, because of earlier stratigraphy. And then that was backed up with absolute dates from radiometric dating. So really, we use the index fossils as a sort of shortcut to which strata this was found in. And the strata themselves are actually not dated on the basis of the index fossil. They're dated on the basis of stratigraphy and radiometric dating. Yeah. It's almost like
How about that?
scientists have thought about this before.
I don't know. Sounds fake.
And evolutionists have admitted as much. Here's Tom
Admitted
Kemp,
as much
new scientist.
as if they were like hiding it.
Yeah, creationists love to say that scientists have admitted when it's just like, what do you mean admitted? That's just an openly known fact that is not problematic for anyone. When you admit something, it's usually embarrassing, right? It's like, oh, I admit it. I was the bonehead who left the refrigerator open, and that's why the chicken turned bad. Okay, yeah, that's an admission. You don't say, I admit it. I'm the one who put this chicken breast in the freezer so it keeps for next week when we're going to have it for dinner. Like, that's not an admission. That's just a thing you did.
Congratulations on the English language again, Dave.
Right? For 499, Asta vulpes novum caudus existed because Togizoshi for you. I'm probably not going to remember that, but that's okay. Did Ken ever talk about the Flatwoods monster? Because Japan has adopted it as a yokai. So if so, there's probably a young Earth creationist yokai argument. I don't remember him ever talking about the Flatwood monster. Mostly because I don't think he could reasonably spin it into being a dinosaur.
Cryptid.
Well, like specifically a Mesozoic reptile, right? Because those are the ones he wants to talk about. He wants to talk about plesiosaurs and like dinosaurs and pterosaurs and whatnot.
Does he think that Mothman is a cryptid or a demon?
I've never heard him talk about Mothman either. The only cryptids I've heard him talk about are lake monsters and like supposed sauropods like Mokele and Bembe. I've never heard him talk about the Flatwood monsters, the Flatwood monster. I've never heard him talk about Bigfoot. Never heard him talk about
I've heard him talk about Bigfoot.
Have you heard him talk about Bigfoot?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, well, maybe I'm wrong about that one. But I've never heard him talk about like El Chupacabra. I've never heard him talk about he's talked about the Ropin, but he doesn't usually name it. Talked about Loch Ness Monster. He's talked about other lake monsters, Mokele and Bembe. I know Cindy had up in his museum a display about a somewhat unnamed cryptid reported by some adventurer explorer guy from America who said he saw it in South America. Of course, this guy also thought that he saw like a fur snake and a dog with 3 noses. So, you know, like, sure,
Did he see Kukulkan while he was there, or Kukulkan?
No, yeah, he saw Kukulkan. Because, you know, he's some random white guy from North America, so he saw Kukulkan.
Magazine, a circular argument arises. Interpret the fossil record in the terms of a particular theory of evolution. Inspect the interpretation and note it confirms the theory. Well, it would, wouldn't it?
Okay, let's see if we can find this, because I feel like this might be a Trojan source. All right, let's see. Tom Kemp, a fresh look at the fossil record. New Scientist, 1985. Okay, this is December 1985. Oh, no, that is not the whole thing. That is just a summary. Well, that doesn't help. Let's see. The vanishing. Nope, that's just the Institute for Creation Research quoting Kemp, but maybe they have the actual citation. Let's take
Creationists use sources that are less than 30 years old challenge.
Yeah, no, they're never going to do that. That's not it either. Stasis for Genesis Park. It's weird how virtually everyone quoting this is a creationist. Creation Studies Institute. ChristianAnswers.net. We got the Amazon link for a book that the same guy wrote. Great. TotalWar.org. As a thread of creation versus evolution. That's weird. Yeah, no, I don't think we can get this this article. But I'm going to go ahead and guess that if I were to be able to look at this, I suspect there's a very high chance that what I would actually find is that this is part of the intro, and that after the introductory paragraph, there are several paragraphs explaining why no, this is not a circular reasoning problem. Gonna go out on a limb and say
Isn't
that.
how, a lot of scientific papers work? Like they'll present an issue and then address the issue.
Yeah, that's why if you look at Creation Myths,
Oh.
the channel run by Dan Stern Cardinal, he has a creation
Mhm.
trick video that's called "Just Read the Abstract."
Yeah.
That's the whole trick.
Yeah.
Is you only read the abstract, and that's the only thing you quote from.
Yeah, it's so real.
My Unfinished Life for $5 says Tiktaalik titillated. There we go. Tiktaalik titillated Andrew Stelling until he exploded in AIG. Which, one, gross, but two, I'll take a drink for it. It's on.
Problems
There it is.
for evolution within the fossil record. Here's
Oh, good. Another quote line. Here we go.
Oxford evolutionist Mark Ridley, and he pretty much
Oxford
throws the whole thing out the
evolutionist.
window.
Okay.
Do you mean Oxford professor?
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
He says, in any case, no real evolutionist, whether gradualist or punctuationist, uses the fossil record as evidence in favor of evolution as opposed to special creation.
I mean, maybe in 1981 that was true.
Oh man, this is
Was that some 40 years ago?
Woo!
Plus 40,
Ooh,
was it
alright.
43 years ago?
Sure.
So he's pretty much given up
Sure.
on the fossil record.
Yeah. Have
Sure,
they,
buddy.
though? Do you think that you could pull up
Sure, buddy.
a quotation from the last 10 years that would agree with that? 'Cause
Uh-huh.
I don't think you could.
Entirely as evidence for evolution. Number 4.
Oh, bingo. Bam.
Mocking the idea of
Oh,
a
Wasn't paying
already?
attention.
You already got
I
a
wasn't
bingo?
paying attention to the bingo card, and I just checked it, and I was like, "Oh,
Jeez.
Right.
That's a quick bingo right there. We're not even
not as
37
fast as my
minutes in.
blackout from the other day."
Oh my goodness. Yeah, sometimes they just go all in.
designer.
Yeah.
He started with Darwin. It's called Darwin's Riddles. And Darwin would say things like, well, if I was a designer, I wouldn't do it that way. That's a bad design.
That's not mocking a designer. That's pointing out counter evidence to the idea of something being designed in the first place. When you're arguing against there being a designer, pointing to bad design isn't mockery of the designer that you don't think designed things in the first place. Right? If I say, hey,
Mhm.
I don't like this mountain because the slopes are too steep and it makes me not want to climb it, I'm not trying to criticize the mountain god that I don't believe in. I'm just pointing out something that I don't like about that mountain. DM Wing and his deplorable ilk for $2 says evolutionist just means not science denier, turtles, and at least in that case, it's probably roughly right. Yeah. Asto Vulpes nomenclatus exists because Togizoshi, I think maybe is what it was. Ryu for $4.99 says, if I hear Oxford evolutionist and the referent isn't Richard Dawkins, they're likely in a sack of tunicates labeled AIG.
Yeah.
Why are you gotta be so mean to all tunicates? It's only the pelagic ones that deserve it.
No, they don't. Stop tunicate
Absolutely
shaming.
do. They absolutely do. Also, Jackson
never
Wheat
did anything to
slandered
you.
me in his most recent video, and I object strenuously to this.
Hey, if you wouldn't dunk on pelagic tunicates so much,
They richly deserve it, though.
they don't. Just accept it. Just learn
know,
to
or-
tolerate them.
I do tolerate them. I'm not currently going on a campaign to exterminate them.
Okay.
I'm letting them live their lives. I'm just not happy about it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what tolerance is. There's a difference between tolerance and acceptance. I don't accept.
I think you should
pelagic
also
tunicates.
accept them.
It's like pelagic tunicates and the statehood of Missouri. I will be in the cold grave before I accept either.
Or why did he do it this way? And so we have what's called the panda principle, which talks about supposed bad designs, and then vestigial.
It's not always necessarily bad design. It's just weird suboptimal design, right? So, for instance, the panda's thumb. The reason this is an example is pandas need to be able to have something to oppose with their digits, so that they can actually strip off the parts of the bamboo that they don't want to eat, which is a lot of the leafy stuff, because that stuff is even worse nutritionally than the sort of the inner flesh of the bamboo, which is also the part I eat occasionally. Oh, hey, Mothra came by. We'll drink from Mothra.
Mothra!
Thanks, Mothra.
She!
Or he, if you're watching the English dub of Godzilla versus the Thing. Mothra came by again? What are you doing, Mothra?
I think Mothra sticks up for pelagic tunicate. She's that type.
Yeah? Okay. If you think so.
Yeah.
I think they're too small for her to even notice that they exist.
You know what? I feel like if Mothra can have an ongoing relationship with fairies, then pelagic tunicate shouldn't present much of a challenge.
Alright, they are really small. That is a good point. But I always felt like their connection was more like psychic than just they were talking to Mothra.
You know what? Maybe Mothra can talk to the pelagic tunicates the way that the fairies can talk to her.
Okay, but the Shabujin have brains. Pelagic tunicates do not.
Maybe there's something that we don't know about pelagic tunicates that Mothra understands.
Maybe. I guess
just laying it out there.
Yeah, it's not impossible, I suppose. Oh, I missed Rosana Keller's super chat. Oh, my goodness. Rosana Transmissible Parasitic Dog Killer for $1.99 says, "Stop making us 80s kids feel really old." I mean, sorry, but the 80s started more than 40 years ago. I don't know what to tell you. That's just how it is. Yeah. Like Vishanti, like you and I don't have calls where you just complain about old stuff.
Shut up. Last night I went out to eat some dinner with friends, and several times throughout the course of our walking around, one of my friends was like, "Wow, this music's really loud." And I was like, "Is it loud or are you old?"
To be fair, even when I was very young, I would often think, like, why is this music so loud? That is dumb. I can't hear anything besides the music. So maybe I just hatched old is what that is right there.
You hatched old, yeah.
I'm like Steve Martin. I hatched at 60 years old.
Yeah.
Or Famke Jensen, who hatched or who was born at like 48, and then maybe
she was born a MILF, like,
in her entire
for real.
Yeah. Vadim Samovsky-Radchenko, who's been a member for 10 months since at the annual level, says, "I, Dapper Dino," which is weird because it's actually Vadim typing this, "accept pelagic tunicate in my heart, and it changed my life." Well, Vadim Samovsky-Radchenko, I'm glad that pelagic tunicates change your life, although you're not Dapper Dino, I am. So it's a really weird thing for you to say, but I appreciate it.
Organs or leftover organs, and these are sometimes called Darwin's riddles.
I've literally never heard anyone else call them that, but okay.
And so Darwin says, why would an intelligent designer make odd and curious designs that seem to be poorly engineered? I mean, if you're a god, why don't you just make an elegant design?
It's a good question.
You know? And why would a creator employ different designs to accomplish the same task amongst organisms and then use the same pattern for very different purposes in other organisms?
It's a good question, and not necessarily because it makes the creator dumb or something, but because that's not how we know known designers work, right? So, for instance, if you were the guy who invented, like, a 6-stroke car engine, and you had, like, 8 different vehicles, and they all needed this exact same engine, you just put the same engine in all of them, right? Even if all the other design criteria that they have are completely different, and they have very different everything else. If they all need that particular engine, you just copy-paste it between all of them. But life doesn't work that way. Like, why don't all tetrapod wings function the same way? Why aren't they all made of the same bones and the same flight structures? I don't have an answer that makes any sense except for evolution. Nether 6 her for €5 says the fairies could talk to Mothra while in the chrysalis. So when dissolved and no brain with a Mothra. There's okay. It is not entirely accurate to say that a caterpillar entirely dissolves inside the chrysalis and then reforms. What's actually happening is that a caterpillar is using most of its life to do things like build up large stores of basically energy storage in the form of things like fat. It's one of the reasons why caterpillars are considered treats for pet lizards is because they're very fatty, which makes the lizards like them a whole lot. But it also means that unless your lizard really needs a high-fat diet, they're not very good for your pet lizard. I know, I had some pet lizards, and I gave them caterpillars as treats. Anyway, what actually happens is all of that stored up fat, and then some of the other segments will essentially be digested, and they essentially form more or less a yolk, which is really weird and gross to think about, but that's what's happening in there. So the entire nervous system doesn't actually dissolve into nothing then to be reassembled, because it can't really. what's happening is all the extra tissue that's been built up for the purpose of providing food for the growing adult is broken down and digested as the metamorphosis goes on. So like the legs are still basically the same legs that it had before, the 6 up front, not the pseudo legs that were on the abdomen. The brain is still basically the same brain. It's going to change in morphology a bit, but it's not going to just be completely dissolved. So yeah, it's not quite accurate to say that the entire thing turns to soup, but by mass, almost all of it does, because by mass, a caterpillar is almost all just energy stores for the transformation. Because that's what caterpillars are. They're just eating machines that just get really, really fat, so they can later live off that fat while they turn into adults.
It's like, well, if you figured out how to make, a good thumb, for example, why don't you give a good thumb to humans and give a good thumb to the panda?
I mean, it's a great question. Pandas also have 5 fingers. One of them could just be opposable. You don't need an extra sesamoid bone to grow out of one side so that you can have an immobile peg sticking out of the wrist that can oppose the digits, which is not as good as a thumb, right? If pandas had real thumbs, they could do things like manipulate tools. They're not that dumb. It would be handy to have a real thumb. They just don't.
And Stephen Jay Gould's book is entitled The Panda's Thumb. Because, you see, the panda has a thumb that's different from ours.
Yeah, they love Stephen Jay Gould because Stephen Jay Gould is easy to quote mine. Because when he was criticizing gradualism, he was often not careful to notice how creationists would take him out of context. And he also complained
why would
vociferously.
he? Because he just is assuming people will listen to his full context and not go, this disproves evolution.
Yeah.
His thumb is more like these 2 fingers where you can squeeze them together, which works perfectly well for stripping the bamboo, but it doesn't have an opposable thumb for grasping.
Oh my goodness. Dude, you could just get the basics of panda thumbs right. We're going to take a drink. I don't know why he decides he needs to get everything wrong. Okay. The panda thumb isn't a finger at all. It is a sesamoid bone, which means it's a dermal bone, which means it's one of the bones that actually comes out of the endodermal tissues, like your clavicles or your jawbone. But unlike, say, your ribs or your vertebrate or your long bones. Okay. It itself grows out of the wrist, and it's not clear if it's actually homologous to any other mammalian wrist bones, because it might actually be a novel ossification of dermal tissues that forms the sesamoid bone. We're not sure. The embryology isn't clear, and I don't think we've done enough genetic studies to actually figure this out. Okay, whatever. But it sticks out from the wrist area, and it is largely immobile, and the digits actually do oppose pretty directly to it. It's not like a side-to-side claw motion that's going on here, which is why pandas can grab a bamboo shoot, strip the leaves off, and then crack it open to get at the nice fleshy innards. Yeah, Dino Dave needs to study panda's middle finger, says William Slamovsky Redchenko. Or just the non-finger that is the panda's thumb. Because that's the thing, is it's not even a finger. It's a weird wrist bone. Why? Why would you want a weird immobile wrist bone to oppose your fingers when you could just have another dexterous finger do it? There's no good reason.
That is weird.
Yeah. There's a reason why it's such a great example of like weird suboptimality in evolution. I was like, this is a really, really odd design. And
you know what else?
Elbows? Yeah, elbows suck.
Elbows.
Maybe that's why Carnotaurus had those weird little stubby arms. I was like,
yeah, I was like, I'm not doing elbows.
Yeah, elbows. I mean, technically it has elbows, but they don't move, and they're always like held close to the body, so they can't really get injured.
Yeah.
This is a bad thumb, right? Why couldn't a creator make a better thumb than that? And then why are there evolutionary leftovers or...
You're not going to give us an answer to that question, Dave? Okay.
Nope, just going to skip it.
Vestigial organs. And so Stephen Jay Gould asks this question in his book, The Panda's Thumb. Odd arrangements.
I will say, I do appreciate that Dino Dave calls him Gould and not Gold, which is a weirdly common thing I find among young Earth creationists. Now, you know, Stephen Jay Gould said, it's like, no, that's not a guy. Or, I mean, look, I don't know, maybe there's a guy out there named Stephen Jay Gould, but he's not the same guy as Stephen Jay Gould. If your name is Stephen Jay Gould, I apologize. Your name is a perfectly fine name. It's just not this guy's name.
And funny solutions are the proof of evolution. Paths that a sensible God would never tread, but that a natural process constrained by history follows perforce.
I don't like the word proof, but sure, whatever.
So let's ask the question, why would God make these odd designs? Now, what's interesting, I talked about William Paley in our last session as the guy that came up with the watchmaker argument for design.
Haley?
William Paley in his book Natural
Yeah, I'm going to call that a successful prediction. I don't even care. I'm taking a drink.
Yep.
Geology, written before Darwin, actually answered this question.
Darwin read the book.
It's funny how the arguments really don't change that much over time.
Wow. Talk about something that should be submitted to r/self-aware-wolves.
Yeah, freaking A, man. Projection.
We're still arguing about the same stuff that Paley and Darwin argued back in the 1800s.
No, never mind. They were not arguing with each other, but sure, whatever. I don't even care. It's so minor.
But Paley in his book Natural Theology on page 34 says, why resort to contrivance, odd designs, where power is omnipotent? Here's what he says. It's only by the display of contrivance the existence, the agency, the wisdom of the deity could be testified to as rational creatures.
Does that make any sense to you?
No.
Okay, because I'm reading that and I'm like, I'm sorry. So
I mean, if you're going to quote mine, you could at least, get context so it flows and makes sense, but whatever.
TMA and his deplorable ilk for $2 says, Stephen J. Go old. Java
3.
Take a drink for that one. Yes, maybe actually Stephen Jay Gould was really a weird alien parasite living inside of a human body. It's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Can you prove he wasn't?
No.
Yeah, I can't either. All right. So what I'm getting from this argument is the way you can know God made organisms is because of how dumb they are. I really don't follow that one. Maybe I'm missing really important context from William Paley. I haven't read his book because I don't frankly care that much. I'm hoping he had more to this than just, the dumber organisms are, the worse put together they are, the more likely it is that they were actually created by the wisdom of an omnipotent deity. Which I'm just like, I have no idea how you think that follows, man. That is that is a non sequitur if I ever heard one. Asta vulpes nomen caudatus existed because I'm not going to remember it. Ryu for 499 says,
that's a lot.
Because you haven't updated your argument since the 60s. That's the 1860s, by the way. Yeah, they really haven't.
For real.
I mean, they're still using 1860s type arguments when it comes to like polystrate fossils, which everyone else just calls upright fossils because they don't actually go through strata. They tend to go through laminae.
Here's what Paley's saying. Follow me on this.
Okay, maybe he'll clarify it because what Paley said sounded super dumb.
Odd things grab our attention. Let's say my friend Kevin and I are marooned on an island in the middle of the ocean. And we're tired of eating bananas and coconuts, and we're just hoping to get rescued.
You should also be eating fish, maybe? I don't know. Go sharpen a stick and spear fish, man. Rosina, transmissible parasitic dog color for $1.99 says, why do we have toes to stub? Yeah, human toes are pretty useless. They barely help out with anything. They're just a source of injury for the most part. Killapunk, half dog, half canine, who's been a member for 9 months and is at the tetrapod level, says drink. AIG is a bag of dicks and sends a Godzilla, a Mothra, and a King Ghidorah emoji, and we will drink for that. Thank you very much. Okay.
And all of a sudden say, hey, Kevin, look out there. There's a bottle floating up and down. See it there in the waves? It looks like it's got a piece of paper in it. Maybe it's a message or something. And he says, you're right, Dino Dave. Why don't you swim out and get it? Okay. So I swim out, get this thing, bring it back. We pop
Because
the
you're
cork.
a rube. Yeah, swim out and get, sucked under in the riptide.
We'll assume it's in a bay where it's a nice, calm, low tidal variation kind of a deal going on here.
All
We
right.
bring out the piece of paper, and it's just a bunch of lines.
Okay.
What's that? I mean, that's not a message. I mean, Maybe at best it's a barcode or something. But I mean, but what if instead of lines, it's a little odd squiggle and then a dot and then a kind of curly Q and some other. Ooh.
Is it shorthand? Are we going with shorthand?
There may be a message here. I mean, maybe it's hieroglyphics or maybe it's something we don't understand, but there could be a message, right? It's the odd.
None of this is a bunch of lines.
Yeah,
Weirdo.
I have no idea where this analogy is supposed to be going. This is making no sense whatsoever to me. Hey, if you guys think in the chat that you know where this is going, I don't know. Like, let me know. Tag me or Vishanti or send a super chat or something if you think you understand how this analogy is supposed to map.
Grab us that there may be a message in here. See? And what Paley is saying is,
okay, so we're done with, so your analogy for why really suboptimal designs in organisms are evidence for God is that they're weird in the same way that receiving a weird bunch of squiggles in a bottle on a desert island that you're stuck on is weird. Except that we know that bottles and paper and squiggles on paper are observably only ever produced by humans, which isn't something we know for living organisms. And also, remind me, Shanti, do glass bottles and paper and ink reproduce by making little baby bottles and paper and ink? No?
No. Again, use living examples in your freaking comparison challenge.
Yeah, this analogy is hurting my brain. I'm just going to take a drink. I have no idea how that's supposed to map well.
God is trying to tell us something.
Is it that he's bad at designing? Because, I mean, that seems like the only message you could take away. It's like, hi, I'm God. I really suck at this. Sorry. I don't think that's what you want the message to be there, Dino Dave. Because I don't think that's how you think about God. It's not how I would suggest anyone who believes in God think about God, because that would probably be like, I don't know, like ontologically horrifying.
Hey, look, my friends, God could have made 3 flower colors, red, yellow, and maybe orange. But God made...
It's like 1 flower color if you're not picky.
That's like yeah. What?
millions of variations and diverses in all these, right? He's telling us something. He's like saying, look, I have incredible intelligence.
Then why did you make the panda thumb suck?
Yeah.
This doesn't work. Yeah. I don't see how this is supposed to have any follow-through.
God could have made 3 stars. 1, 2, 3. That's cool, right? You know, you have triangle. There it is. That's our 3. That's
I mean, he could have done a lot of things. Why is this an argument?
Hey, Vishanti, it's a triangle. You'll never guess what's up on screen right now.
I'm not looking at the stream. What's on screen?
Triangle meme.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
But God made trillions of stars just to show us.
I mean, it's a lot more than that, but okay, sure.
His omnipotence and his power.
Then how come virtually all of them are invisible to the naked eye? Right?
Mm-hmm.
If the point of stars is to be like, hey, look, Adam or Abram or whoever, look how many stars there are. I made them. Isn't that cool? Okay, yeah, that is cool, but then why are there so many that none of them could have ever seen? Like, you know that there's a star that was recently discovered that was nicknamed Methuselah because it's the oldest known individual star. And it's like something ridiculous, like 10 billion light years away or something, right? What was the point of Methuselah in God's plan when it comes to things like signs and seasons for farmers on Earth, which is the purpose for the stars given in the Bible? Right? Why does the Bible say God made stars?
I think it's a sign that younger creationists are dumb.
I mean, yeah, I guess it could be that. This is the season where young Earth creationists should just stop. Stop it. Get some help.
Yeah.
Take Michael Jordan's advice.
That's right.
God's communicating something to us. And why does God make a curious design like a panda's thumb and these other things? He's trying to say, hey, look at this.
Oh, okay.
I get the star point, kind of, right? Like, stars are cool and impressive and whatnot. But then you're like, hey guys, look at this really bad thumb I made. What do you... What, I don't understand how this is an argument that he thinks makes sense. In fact, I'm going to have to go and put more beverage in here I'm going to take a quick drink here because I just have no clue what's happening right now. This is absolutely baffling to me.
Yeah, this is almost as bad as Kent Hovind, but in some ways it's worse.
Yeah, I at least usually know what the argument that Kent is trying to make is. In this case, I don't get what the argument is even supposed to be. Hey, do you notice when things are badly designed? Therefore, God badly designed them to get your attention. I just don't get it. We're gonna take a quick break, guys. I have no idea how any of this is supposed to be made. But yeah.
All
right.
Bad.
Here we go. Oh, enjoy the musical stylings of one Bent Hovind. Okay, we are back. Thank you very much, everybody. I have a couple of things to read. DM Wing and his deplorable ilk for $2 says poor design is a coded message we don't understand. I mean, I guess that is the argument. And then Asta Vulpes Novum Caudatus exists because Japanese were you, because I already forgot it. I'm sorry. It's not likely to happen. For $1.99 says this guy is pushing a Hecto-Hovind, pushing the Hecto-Hovind berry.
Yeah, really.
Wow, yeah. Reminds me, you know, every once in a while you watch, like, TOS, and Star Trek, the original series. And it's very obvious that, like, the canon hasn't quite settled down. Because, like, in early episodes, like, Kirk's like, oh, this is the United Earth Space Probe Exploration Agency. It's like, wait, it is? Mm-hmm. It's not Starfleet? And then later on, they'll meet some colonists, and they're like, oh, hey, our new ships have broken this light speed barrier. But then in a later episode, they'll meet Zephram Cochrane, the inventor of warp drive from like 100 years ago. And it's like, what is happening? Also, Savage aligning the water cobra gifted 5 memberships. They went to Unguloid, Chesh, Mr. Anderson, Lord Crocodile Squirrel, and Pseudo Didact. By the way, I am going to pour this margarita into my glass here. So now that we're back, I want to give you the quick after we're back talk, which is basically to say, hey, nothing has driven home to me the importance of my viewer support more than the past month or so has, right? Because the algorithm just decided to just absolutely take a dump. Not just my channel, but a lot of like science communication style channels. And it's very frustrating, and there's not a whole lot to be done about it, except to just keep working at it. But I want to say that because you guys are such a big part of keeping this channel going, it has not been a disaster for me financially. And that's really important, because in order for me to keep doing, like 3 videos a week and pumping out like 6, coming up on 7 months worth of early access stuff, I need to be able to, pay the bills, have a roof over my head, not starve. And you guys are the ones that make that happen. The ad revenue does not make that happen. Ad revenue, like, it pays for like a Netflix subscription. I mean, it's better than that, but not by a whole lot, right? So if you are currently someone who is enjoying the work that I do, and you would like to make sure that I can keep doing it, make improvements, stuff like that, there's a few easy ways for you to support. One of the easiest ways, and one of the best ways in my opinion, is Patreon, where I get to keep the most of the money. It's also gives you access to the Discord server that's just for supporters. It gives you early access to months and months worth of stuff. You could go binge watch, like, it's probably more than 10 hours worth of Dapper Dinosaur at this point. Probably well more than 10 hours, really. You could just do that. Also, there's the channel memberships. Those start at $1.99, where the Patreon starts at $1 a month. The channel memberships also give you early access. It also gives you access to the Discord server. On Patreon, you can get a 15% discount if you go annually. And if neither of those are right, if you don't want to do an annual or a monthly pledge, but you still want to support a number of other options, there is a merch store. Right below this video, you will see a merch shelf. If anything there catches your fancy, you can click directly on it and go to the buy page. But also, if you click on anything there, you can then peruse the rest of my entire merch shop, which has all sorts of stuff with a few different designs. If none of that's your thing, but maybe you're just feeling generous and you want to give, say, me, or in this case, Vishanti, a bit of a dopamine hit, we both have wish lists linked in the description. So they're just Amazon wish lists. You can just buy us something if you want to. Some of it's stuff that's actually important and needed. A lot of it, at least on mine, is just fun stuff. Like, hey, you want to get me a Lieutenant Worf Tiki mug? It's on the wish list. You can do that. You can get me a Tiki Worf to drink cocktails out of. Put a Mai Tai in there, Yeah, I drink a Mai Tai out of a Worf glass. There's also a Mogatu, or Mogato? I don't know. It's the big white ape-like thing with the horns and the poison from Star Trek. Yeah. Whatever that one is, it's in there. In fact, actually, in the Lower Decks episode involving them, they actually make a joke about the fact that no one can remember how to say the name. And they keep changing how they pronounce the name in the show. Anyway, yeah, so and if none of that's your thing, please make sure you just like and share these videos, because that is how the algorithm gets its head out of its ass and returns my videos to actually being watched. Because one of the most frustrating things in the world is watching my my click-through rate for my impressions stay where it normally is, or even higher, but then watch my number of views go down, because that just means the algorithm is just like, I just don't want to show this video to people. Thanks. Really appreciate it. But liking will boost it. Commenting will boost it. But if you do comment, don't say anything about the algorithm, because it'll notice. And say things that are not about the algorithm, because then it doesn't think you're talking about it. Because when you talk about the algorithm, it gets shy. Let's see. Mine Finished Like for $5 says, this is God's first universe, so the pen is thumb sucks because God's still a rookie. But the next world will be way cooler. I mean... That's actually in line with a lot of various Christian eschatological ruminations, so...
I mean, if you are into, like, super deep Jewish lore, this is very far from the first universe. We're into the several hundreds or thousands versioned.
And it still sucks this much?
Well...
Hey.
Work in progress, I guess.
We need to renew that lawsuit that Job had. I mean, like, hey, you got a lot more explaining to do.
Yeah.
Let me get your attention over here.
Okay, you got it.
I could make one thumb. I'm making lots of ones, and they work just fine.
Except they kind of don't, though. The pen is thumb legitimately kind of sucks.
And by the way, they're a problem for evolution. Do you know you've got human eyes, you've got octopus eyes,
So not the thumbs then. Oh, eyes, okay.
which are completely wired differently. You got, these compound eyes of insects. You got, well, it's hard enough for evolutionists to explain one eyeball.
It's actually not. An eyeball could evolve from literally no eyeball at all and no light sensitivity, no light sensing option in about a couple 100,000 years. 500,000 years at the outside. It's really not hard to explain. And it's actually kind of trivial. In fact, it's so trivial that Darwin figured it out, and he was mostly right about that. And he put down how to evolve an eye in The Origin of Species as an example of something that seems hard to evolve, but actually is pretty trivial to evolve. And our explanation of the most likely pathway to get to various camera-style eyes hasn't really changed since Darwin, because it turns out it's actually really, really, really simple to do. Taking a drink for it. If he wants to go further into this, then we'll actually start talking about the evolution of the eye. Also, I do think if people keep up the current pace with the super chats, we might be in line for... Would this be a third feeder cuff video in a row if they got it? All right. Yeah, you guys, you could do it. It's possible. Can't slack off.
And God made a whole bunch just to kind of communicate. Hey, look, this is creation. It's not evolution.
No, man, because convergent evolution, in which you have very fundamentally different organs that do the same function, some worse than others, is directly the thing we don't see in design. It's the exact thing we do see in genetic descent, even in things that aren't biological evolution, right? Like languages. Like, the English verb system is really weird, because English almost entirely depends on word order for semantic meaning, but as a result of basically a vestigial, more complicated verbal system, English likes to do weird things like, oh yeah, the present tense form of a verb is always the same, unless the subject is a third person singular subject, then we add an S. Why? Because it hasn't gone, it's because it hasn't gone away. There's no synchronic purpose to it. It doesn't help in any way.
Synchronic. What a good movie.
It was a good movie. But in this case, I'm contrasting it with diachronic, which is, you can look at languages in diachronic ways and synchronic ways. Synchronic ways is always you just take a single snapshot of how a language works at a particular time, whereas in diachronic ways of looking at a language, you take a look at the whole history of the language, see how it's changed, and how you explain features at one point in context of their development from previous points. Because I'm not a linguist.
So God is giving us a testimony to his rational creatures. Let's talk about vestigial organs for a minute.
Oh, good.
Maybe you heard about the tailbone. Don't you know, Dino Dave? Your tailbone, this useless little thing coming down here.
I wouldn't characterize it as useless, but okay.
At the end of your spinal column, that is evolutionary evidence of your ape ancestry.
No, because the tail was lost before the common ancestor of all apes. So we'll take a drink for that, because that is, in fact, a plesiomorphy.
I mean, if he thinks that his coccyx is useless, I would love to see his removed and then wait.
He doesn't think it's useless. That's the thing. He's being facetious there. But, yeah, no, it's evidence of your ancestry from other mammals that did have tails. Like primates, broadly speaking. Or just mammals in general. Or really just vertebrates. Raziel Fostes, who's been a member for 11 months, is at the annual level, says, if this is a discount Hovind, where is the discount Matt Powell? It might just be Matt Powell. Matt Powell might just be like discount version incarnate.
Yike. Well.
Matt Powell is the Matt Powell you get from Wish.com.
When your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents were swinging in the trees. Well, I like what the old fella said. He said, some of my ancestors may have been swinging in the trees, but they were swinging from the...
Nope. Nope. I know where that was going. We don't... Nope.
But I never...
I'm just going to take a drink, because I think we all know where that was going, but I skipped it.
Glad we can add casual bigotry to the bingo card then, you know. Yeah.
I understood this argument anyway. Like, what's the benefit of losing a tail? I mean...
So that's actually a really good question. And it seems like the benefit might actually be that it assists in the upright brachiation and other upright movements that apes make in trees. Because the thing is that when in trees, apes tend to reach up with their arms and down with their legs, and a tail might get in the way of the hind limb dominance that apes use when they locomote, especially even in trees, where a lot of the propulsive force is actually coming from the hind limbs, but the balancing and securing to the rest of the tree is done by the arms. Now, some apes then later specialized for brachiation, and it became less important, but this was after the loss of the tail. Also, it could just be that it was just a coincidence, right? Because we've actually identified the genetic cause. There's a particular gene that actually has a particular mutation, and when you give that mutation to other animals with tails, like mice, they are born without tails. So we know that this is the thing that does it, right? Humans have a gene that would normally allow for a full tail, as do all other apes. And it's broken in a specific way, that if you break it in other animals that are related to primates, like mice, they just don't grow a tail. Now, in them, it's also correlated with other health problems, which is not correlated with in apes. So, you know, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but it's still, we know the exact reason, genetically, why humans don't have tails. Which actually raises the question, if humans have a broken tail gene, did Adam and Eve have tails? Because if they were created perfect without any errors in their genetic code, that should mean that all their genes were functional. They shouldn't have had any pseudogenes, which means they probably should have had tails. So creationists out there, if you want to go with the whole initially perfect genomes, your Adam and Eve depictions you should probably put tails on them.
No belly button for Adam, but definitely give him a tail. Can't wait to see that.
Yeah. So yeah, first of all, it doesn't necessarily have to have had a advantageous effect. It just has to be not detrimental. But second, we can actually identify at least potentially advantageous aspects of not having a tail. Savage, aligning the water cobra for $5, says a discount Matt Powell would have to be sold at a price lower than free. Yeah. I'll give you money if you take this Matt Powell off my hands.
There are times where I wish I had a tail. Wouldn't it be convenient? You could close the door behind you. Hey, I play piano. It'd be nice to be able to catch some of those low notes down there with the tail, you know?
You're describing a prehensile tail. Something that no old world monkey has, which means that the ancestors of humans never had a prehensile tail. Very few animals ever evolved prehensile tails.
Even if, that's a Hovind cartoon, but also, even if you had a prehensile tail, it wouldn't be very useful for playing more than a single extra note on the piano. Just saying.
Sometimes that's what you need.
Wow.
I'm kind of kidding a little bit. I fell out of a tree once.
Also, does he know that he could kick the door shut with his foot?
Yeah, I don't know, because it's actually really easy. I've never had the problem where I can't close this door behind me because first I have a tail, but I also have, feet and the rest of my body, because it's really
pulling
easy
it open. Sure.
Yeah.
Struggle. But
closing it, super easy.
Closing it, yeah.
Savage, aligning the water cobra for $5, says, this is not an endorsement for selling humans. I am not an apologist. Vandelian 1998 for $5 says, even if we did have tails, we are from the side of the simiiforms that have useless tails anyway, so what's the point? Well, I don't know about useless. I mean, non-ape simiiform monkeys tend to use them for balance and sensory information and stuff like that, so they don't use them. But yeah, they're certainly not prehensile in most monkeys.
To have a tail. But where's that an evolutionary benefit?
I already explained it, and also it doesn't need to have one necessarily.
No, it's not a vestigial organ. It's a place where muscles get attached. Try doing without it.
That doesn't make it not vestigial. Vestigial means that the structure is of greatly reduced function for the primary function that it serves in related organisms that have the full-fledged version of the thing. And that's basically it, right? So, ostrich wings. They're vestigial because they don't help the animal fly. Do they help the animal do other things, like keep cool, balance, and look all sexy for mates? Yes. Yes, they do. Does that make them not vestigial? No. Python spurs. They're vestigial legs. Are they useful for locomotion for the python? Not that anyone's been able to determine. Are they handy for, say, opening up the cloacal vent of a female python so a male python can mate? Yes. Yes, they are. Does that make them not vestigial? No.
Try sitting down without it. You'll find you're very thankful that you have your coccyx there at the end.
People who've had their coccyx injured or removed can sit down. The real problems come with things that have to do with like pelvic floor muscles, which involves things like bowel control or certain reproductive functions, especially if you have a uterus. But yeah, I'm not going to say those aren't important. I would rather, I assume most people would rather that their, lower intestines, anus, and uterus function the way that they would expect them to.
Of your tailbone. How about the appendix? The human appendix is one of the classic vestigial organs. Here it is, this little tiny finger down here, right where the large intestine and the small intestine kind of connect. And they said, it's leftover. It's a vestige. Why? Well, because we can cut it out and it doesn't seem to hurt people. So it must be.
Nope, that's not why. It's because it was thought,
It
was thought to be homologous to the vermiform cecum in animals like ungulates. Turns out it's probably not, and it's probably not vestigial. It probably actually did evolve specifically for the function that it has now, which is not the most important function, but it's nice. So yeah, it's not vestigial, most likely, but not because it has a function. Having a function is immaterial to vestigiality. The question is, does it have the function for which it is primarily used in other organisms? That's why a whale pelvis, despite still attaching muscles used for reproduction, because I don't know if you know this, guys, but mammals involve their pelvises in reproduction. Shocking, I know. Unless, of course, maybe you've had kids, in which case you might know that mammals use their pelvis for reproduction. But yeah, the primary purpose for a pelvis is to support weight coming from the legs. Do whales support weight coming from their hind legs via their pelvis? No. Therefore, it is vestigial.
Be useless. Careful about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just don't know what something does. Hey, I had my appendix out and I'm surviving fine. Well, recent research by evolutionists has shown that the appendix has an important function as a...
You know why it's the, quote, evolutionist doing the research? Creationists don't do research.
Mm-mm.
I do think we've fallen behind the pace, though. I don't think we're going to get new feeders.
Safe house for helpful bacteria.
Right.
So if you have something that shoots right through your whole, intestines and basically wipes you out all your good.
I'm sorry. I know that this isn't what he means, but that just sounded like someone shot you in the gut, and your appendix isn't going to help you at all with that. I'm pretty sure he means like, you just had a horrible bout of diarrhea, or you took some really strong antibiotics or something. But when you say it shoots you through the intestines, the only thing I think of is a projectile going into your guts, which is not good and not something that, protecting your gut bacteria in your appendix is going to help with.
Bacteria is gone, you're going to have a problem because we need that helpful bacteria to digest our food and get our nutrients. Well, it's there in the appendix and it can kind of repopulate and come back out into your intestines. So if I got some of these nasty diseases, I might have some real difficulties that maybe you guys wouldn't because I don't have an appendix.
Eat some more yogurt, man. You'll be fine.
Yeah, really.
Now, today we have ways of kind of repopulating artificially, but if you have a disease like dysentery and you don't have an appendix, it could be a major problem.
Dysentery can be a major problem, appendix or not. It causes severe dehydration. Like, I'm not saying that the appendix isn't useful or important, but like, dude, if you think the determining factor in whether or not you survive dysentery is whether or not you have an appendix, you have fundamentally misunderstood the problem with dysentery. You die from dehydration. You need to be drinking a whole lot of water and maybe get an IV. Because, yeah, that's the real problem with dysentery. That's why if you're having a loose stool, drink a lot of water.
You really can shit yourself to death.
It's true. Ask Elvis. Oh, he actually died of cardiac problems, not actually literally shitting himself.
Yeah.
But, I mean...
Probably comorbidity or something.
Yeah,
but,
he was in the bathroom with his pants down, but he didn't quite get to the actual business part of that deal.
So, it is not vestigial. It does have...
Or how about this? Ask Catherine the Great. It does seem like that's how she died. Unlike the rumors that said that she died while doing untoward things with a stallion, which is not true. People didn't like her, so they made up slanderous stories about how she died. It also didn't help that after her death, they uncovered her secret sex room that was full of sex furniture, which is true. Some of it's been preserved. You can go see her weird sex chair.
Oh my.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll never guess what's carved all over the sex chair.
Bits.
Lots of bits. Various bits.
How did I know?
A purpose. Our final one is nested hierarchy.
Oh, actually, that reminds me. So, last week, I have to make an apology to Bill Nye the Science Guy. I misremembered which anti-science nonsense he had been boosting. I said it was anti-vax. It was, in fact, anti-GMO. So my apologies to Bill Nye. You were not an anti-vaxxer anywhere that I can find. However, you were anti-GMO for just no particular reason, which still is something that can cause the death of countless people, because GMOs are part of the reason we can feed as many people as exist now, and switching to no GMOs worldwide probably cause a famine. So while it's still not okay, it's a different kind of not okay, so sorry, Bill.
In my opinion, this is the best argument for evolution.
Hey, I agree. He got that right. Let's take a drink. I think the nested hierarchy, as long as you include genetics in addition to morphology.
I think the best argument for evolution, like in my opinion, is endogenous retroviruses.
But the only reason they work as an argument for evolution is because they fit the nested hierarchy pattern. So it's just a subset.
I mean, I'm not saying that they don't, or that, there's not better ones, but my personal preference.
Right.
Like if someone goes, what's your boost to endogenous retroviruses? Bye.
Yeah. And my point is that that's just part of the whole nested hierarchy. That's like the umbrella term that includes endogenous retroviruses. It includes various other retrotransposons. It includes pseudogenes. All of that stuff comes under that heading. Roundsfield Fossil says, is he still anti-GMO or he was anti-GMO? My understanding is that he has sort of course corrected on his GMO thing, and he is now broadly in favor of GMOs. Although he still advocates for, testing, which is okay because that is something that happens anyway. GMO crops are in fact tested. And they should be, right? If you're going to develop a new thing for people to eat, you should have to test it. So, and they do. So, yeah. He basically now has pretty much the same stance I do. Is, yeah, hey, GMOs are a good thing. They're probably the only thing that's going to be able to feed the world in the long term. And they should undergo safety testing. Just like any new food product should. If you put some new thing that people haven't been eating in food, you should test it. Because who knows? Sometimes weird stuff happens.
God, I'm so glad someone made the joke. Ancestral Clydesdale megafauna in the chat says, in Soviet Russia, hierarchies nest you.
That's the Russia that came after Catherine.
Darwin called it homology, but it's this idea of...
the word homology was invented like a century before Darwin. Don't quote me on that exact number, but it was before Darwin was born. Homology had been used for a very long time.
Similarities between organisms that are of the same general category. Let me illustrate. Here we see various mammals, and you have what is a 5-fingered structure in all of them, a pentadactyl limb.
Whoa.
5-fingered structure. In a monkey, he will use it to manipulate. He'll, open bananas. He'll climb in the trees with it. A mole, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, will have it as part of a spade-like hand that he uses for digging. A dolphin will have somewhat modified, but these 5 fingers, he'll use it as a flipper in swimming. And a bat, again, these same 5, very different from a bird's or a pterosaur's wing, but these 5 fingers will help support his wing membrane for flying.
Hey, he got all that right, too. We'll take a drink. Finished Life for $2 says, is the Higgs boson a trans boson? Sure. We'll just go with sure. Because I don't know what that means. Why not? But, why not? Why, yeah.
And the evolutionists will say, well, maybe it would have been better to have 6 in a dolphin, or maybe 19 or 20 in a mole.
I've never heard anyone say this. I have no idea where he's getting this. What even is this?
But they
University of my ass.
Yeah, we're still a good way. I'm pretty sure you're safe from having another feather cuff next week.
Well, darn.
Yeah.
Stuck with this pentadactyl limb structure they inherited from their ancestor, and so they have to kind of modify it. Evolution had to kind of tinker with it, but that shows that we all had a common ancestor with 5 fingers.
I mean, Yeah, because there's no thing is we know of other numbers of projections that can come from limb-like structures, right? So arachnids have 2 claws at the end of their legs, just 2. So why 2? Why not 4 or 5? I don't know. It's contingent. Why do we have, say, other organisms like dinosaurs? Typically 4 toes, and at least in theropods, the digits in the manus or the hand typically reduced to 3 early on in Neotheropoda. Why? I don't actually know, but like, would it be better if birds had 4 fingers? Maybe? I don't know. Sure, maybe. Not necessarily.
Now, there's a big problem in that these develop from different genes in these different organisms. Yes,
They don't, though. The exact same developmental genes control fingers. Not only do they control fingers in mammals, they do it in reptiles. They even control the rays that come off of the body wall on a stingray to form the flat flaps. If you modify the finger genes, which are developmental genes that are in charge of digit production, in an embryo of a tetrapod, so that they actually start fractally branching, so that you have, like, you get your proximal phalange, but then it splits into 2 medial phalanges, and those split into a total of 4 distal phalanges, which is a simple little switch that you can put in there in the genes. The same thing will happen to the projections that form the radial structure of the flappy fins that a stingray uses to propel itself through the water. That's how deep the genetic homology goes. It goes all the way back past bony fish to the common ancestor between you and a shark. Right? That's how deeply this genetic homology goes. This is just a lie. In fact, I'm taking a drink for it because it's just not true.
they all end up with 5 fingers, but they don't all come from the same genes. And if there's anything we should be getting from our common ancestor, it's the genes, right?
Which is what we do get.
Yeah.
There's a reason that the nested hierarchy applies to genetics as well as morphology. There's a reason why you can reconstruct virtually the entire tree of life just on Vishanti's favorite, endogenous retroviruses. Right? Why would that be the case other than common ancestry? There's no good reason.
That's supposedly what, and evolutionists never discussed this. So that's a major problem with it.
Actually, it is discussed. There's been numerous, like scores of experiments, hundreds of papers written about this thing, because initially, given the initial results, before we even figured out what the shape of DNA was, but after we figured out that it was probably the molecule of inheritance, there were experiments that seemed to throw a wrench into the idea of deep homology in genetics, and it seemed like maybe it wasn't true, which was surprising. But then we looked into it and we found out that no, not only are developmental genes largely homologous across vertebrata, they're homologous across bilateria. You use the same genes to determine where your head and your butt goes that a fly uses to determine where its head and its butt goes. Like, that same thing with eyes. The same genes that determine where your eyes go are the ones that determine where a fly grows its eyes. Like, there is deep, deep genetic homology. And yeah, for a little while, it wasn't clear that that was the case, and there were people going back and forth on that. Because that's how science works. When there's an open question and we don't have definitive data either way, people argue either way. Unsurprisingly, it's settled in the way that favors evolution, as things so often seem to, which is so frustrating, because, we all know evolution isn't true, but for some reason, reality just keeps conspiring to make it seem like it is true. Also, I just noticed something. Why is there a window frame with no window to the left of his little drop-down thing? What is that? It's like someone stuck a window frame on the wall. It's gonna bug me now. From this point on, that's gonna bug me. It's like, why is there a window frame stuck to your wall, my guy? That is not how windows work. You know what? I think I might actually know what it is. I think it might be that this church looks like an actual purpose-built church interior. But I suspect it actually might not be, and it might actually just be in some kind of like office space or warehouse space or something that's been nicely done up. I've been to a lot of churches that were like that. And that might actually just be a decorative element to keep the illusion that this is like a purpose-built church. I think that might actually be what's going on.
but we do have this ability to group organisms. So you might superficially group organisms and say, well, maybe a bat's closer to a bird because they're both flying.
I mean, I guess technically they're both ophanine, but no, they're not grouped together taxonomically. Because not only do they both fly, but they fly in very different ways. Their wings aren't homologous as wings. They're homologous as forelimbs, but not as wings, which is one of the reasons that we know that they're actually not closely related, because they don't fit into a nested hierarchy. That's the thing. You can't... This is just a straw man of the nested hierarchy.
But structurally, it's limb structure, it's skeletal structure, it's closer to...
Dinosaurs?
A dolphin.
Wait.
Oh.
Do you mean the bat is closer to the dolphin? Because I might agree there. Not being clear, but I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he means the bat is closer to the dolphin rather than that the bird is closer to the dolphin. So, yeah. Vadim Samovsky Rechenko says the basement pretending to be a cathedral. Well, first, I doubt it's pretending to be a cathedral. Because a cathedral is the parish church of a bishop. And I'm pretty sure these are not the kind of Christians that have bishops. So, which means they're not the kind of Christians that have cathedrals. Which also means that the fanciness of a church has no bearing on whether or not it's a cathedral. Even if...
Well, good luck convincing a lot of people that.
Look, I saw the... I saw the cathedral of the Bishop of Singapore in the Ecumenical Patriarchate. It was an office space in the one of the middle floors of a high-rise in Singapore. That was the cathedral.
And a human. It's a mammal. It has fur. It feeds its young milk, and it has this pentadactyl limb structure. So, they would say, well, they all had a common ancestor. And that, in fact, this goes all the way back to Darwin, right? He says it's truly a wonderful fact that all animals and plants throughout all the time and space should be related to each other. And he said very clearly, if my theory be true, numberless intermediate varieties must assuredly have existed. Now, we already told you that they haven't found them. They haven't found these in-betweens, that we don't have the fossils for all these. But they talk about a tree of life. There was only...
that was just Where Are the Missing Fossils, which is just a Dr. Banjo, and I'm going to take a drink for this guy just pulling a Dr. Banjo on us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which, by the way, of the second run of Futurama episodes, A Clockwork Origin is probably my favorite, because overall, after the series revival, after the movies, the quality dipped a bit. I don't think anyone's really going to argue with me on that. But A Clockwork Origin is up there among the best ever episodes of Futurama, in my opinion. So, it is a standout. It's sort of like, how like season 3 of Star Trek, the original series, kind of went downhill, but there's still a few really good ones in there. So, or actually, I just heard someone dissing on Day of the Dove from the original series. I'm like, come on, Day of the Dove was great. I liked Day of the Dove. It also gave us our first non-male Klingon. So, Mara. Lady, which is a Klingon. Nice to have some diversity in there. Klingons the Klingon Empire isn't just a sausage fest.
One illustration in Darwin's book, and it was this, a tree of life. Now,
that's not the one that was in Darwin's book, but okay. That was clearly something you put up there in paint. How bad that looks.
That's... Wow.
What does even happen?
If y'all want to know, these are these are the skills that I have drawing things in Paint and Photoshop. So, yeah.
Hire artists, everybody. Hire artists.
Graphic design is my passion.
You didn't even give it an anti-aliasing pass.
I know.
On, man. Oh.
Yeah.
If you don't want to actually use an anti-aliasing filter, just give it a Gaussian blur with 0.5 pixel blurring.
In their trees of life, they could point to a clear common ancestor that they all agreed on, this was the original life to non-life to life, and from there...
No one has ever
That's
been able...
not what that represents. No. Oh my god. Wow.
So, yeah, first, the most recent universal common ancestor, or the last universal common ancestor, Luca, wasn't the first life form ever. Second, no one can point to any particular fossil and be like, that's Luca. Or point to a particular fossil and say, that's the first living organism. We probably are never going to find either of those things as fossils.
That common ancestor brought all living things into existence. That would be good evidence for evolution. If they could point to some definitive transitional forms right where things are splitting that are kind of half this and half that.
Huh. Hey, Vishanti.
Mhm.
Do you know that transitional forms, definitive, I would say, transitional forms, are just going by right above your head? Like, if you just look up, you'll be looking right at them.
Yeah, actually, I did.
Yeah.
Yodelito, etc.
Everybody, get your Vishantis in the chat. I'm gonna take a drink for like, if only we had transitional fossils.
Yeah.
There's a reason I put that above your head for these when there's not a third person here.
That would be good
Kid's
evidence for
welcome to
evolution.
crash these streams at any time. I'm just like, he knows that. But
Yeah,
yeah.
but he also tends
I
not
like
to
having
'cause
the.
He's like, yeah, I don't have anything to say about that. I'm like, no, I get it.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons
I
why,
mean,
like,
look, I'm not a biologist, and I'm not an expert in basically any of the things that they're talking about. I've just heard their crap so many times and heard people debunk it so many times that I've learned how to like just laugh at them.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not an expert in this. I'm just here for comedic value.
it's an important thing to have. Comedic value.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if
I'm the tainment part of the edutainment.
yeah, because I'm boring as shit.
If they could show...
You're just not as much of a shit poster as me.
That is true. Al Trucker, who's been a member for 12 months, who's at the amniote level, says AIG is a skid of slappy smelt smellier than 77 smoked sardines, shaved and shoved slippery and snug socks, and all into slick sloppy sausage sacks. Jeez.
All right. Yeah, I'm a certified meme lord, though, so.
It's true. You are.
Yeah.
Not all through it, but at least some places a gradual change into two very different kinds of organisms with all the fossils in a line, the phylogeny to support that. That would be good evidence for evolution.
This is just Dr. Banjo again.
Mm-hmm. It's a good thing we have all those transitional fossils right above your head the entire time.
They don't do that.
Oh, they don't, though.
You prove my
Do
point.
that. Don't take my word for it. Here's
See,
Stephen
I have
Jay
you
it's
now.
crashing.
Harvard University
No, it's
leading
crashing.
evolutionist, quote, the extreme rarity of transitional forms in the fossil record
boo.
persists
The dumb
as
was
the
too
trade
much.
secret of
Yeah, it was.
Horizon of dumb.
We'll bring it back, though, because I still have it somewhere, I think. I hope. Pray. So, yeah, we'll bring it back. But, yeah, like, man. All right. The audience will be able to see this in just a second, but you won't. So, give me a second. I'll pull it back up. And that is not a Dapper as a professional, because only for when I screw up. If the computer screws up, that's not my fault. Getting it back to where it was. All right. Give me a second. I'm going to turn your face off just so people don't have to see me futzing around with sharing screens and whatnot. I can't believe you would put that on camera just because you're off camera, Vishanti. That is inappropriate. What are you doing?
You know I'm not watching the stream.
All right. Well, now you're back after you put that away.
They don't do that. Don't take my word for it. Here is Stephen Jay Gould, Harvard University, leading evolutionist, quote, the extreme rarity of transitional forms in the fossil record persists as the trade secret of paleontology.
Everybody's favorite Stephen Jay Gould quote mine. I'm going to take a drink. You know, Stephen Jay Gould, back before he died, was well aware of the absolute abuse that this quote was being done by creationists. And he, in fact, objected to it on the record, stating that while I have said that transitional forms are rare between species, between larger taxa, they are abundant, and it is frustrating, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit. I think he actually said it's infuriating to be continually misrepresented by creationists as if there were no transitional forms whatsoever. Stephen Jay Gould called you out on this decades ago. I don't believe that you couldn't have found that.
Well, he'd have to want to.
Yeah, okay, good point.
Evolutionary trees that adorn our textbooks have data only at the tips and nodes of their branches. The rest is inference. However reasonable, not the
Tell me you
evidence of
don't
the
know how
fossils.
science works without telling me.
Yeah, let's take a drink for that being dumb. And also, I have a super
wow.
chat from Vandalia that I must have missed while I was working on the getting the video back. So sorry, I'll take a drink and I'll read that out. Vandalia 1998 for $5 says, since I'm 98% sure whoever Luca was probably, quote, died via asexual reproduction, finding a fossil of one would probably be hard. So Luca probably wasn't an individual cell. It was probably a population of cells. So there is that. Because when we're talking about phylogeny, we're talking about the ancestry of groups, not individuals. There probably wasn't a single cell that we could reasonably identify as Luca, but that group still almost certainly went extinct a long time ago in terms of was no longer recognizably present because it evolved into other things. Nathaniel Paleontology confirms the Bible, Greg, for $5 says, are Klingons going through rapid punctuated equilibrium? Why does the appearance change so rapidly in universe? And AIG are a packet of pocket pickles.
I mean, I wouldn't say that that's rapidly in universe, because, I mean, how many years pass between, like, Enterprise and the TOS era? And then from, like, TOS to next gen?
About another 100 or so? A little less.
Yeah, that's not, I mean, so if it's just, though, like, if that was an augment mutation,
which it was,
like, that smoothed out some of their skulls, it wasn't all of them, right? That wouldn't necessarily take millions of years to...
Well, plus, the in-universe explanation is also that there were corrections both in terms of medical intervention as well as cosmetic surgery. So, for instance, when Kang, Koloth, and Kor reappear in Deep Space Nine and now they have the forehead ridges, the presumption that has usually been accepted is that that was actually a corrective surgery that was done later on in time to restore the original Klingon appearance, even though being victims of the augment virus, they never really had forehead ridges in the first place. Now, granted, the real reason is like, just background
correct me, like,
stuff. But
if it's a virus and you treat the virus, then that doesn't necessarily just completely rewrite your entire DNA structure.
Yeah,
like,
nor does it...
All right, well, everybody got a virus. You're never going to have, like, ridges ever again. It's like, well...
Right. It would morphologically suppress the ridges in the infected individuals, but if that were cleared, the previously infected individuals probably wouldn't regrow ridges, but their children would grow ridges.
Yeah, they wouldn't have a suppressed thing. So
the
epigenetics or some crap like that. I don't know. Like I said, not a biologist. I'm just here for comedy.
The one that's harder to explain, though, is the appearance of Klingons in Star Trek Discovery, to which I just say, I don't count Discovery because that show sucks. And I've had a whole bunch of people be like, you just hate New Trek. Like, I'm sorry, then explain why I like Lower Decks, or Strange New Worlds, or Season 3 of Captain Picard. Because I really like all of those things. It's not that it's new. It's that it sucks. Some things just suck.
God.
And look, there are episodes of the original series that I do like that also suck. Like Spock's Brain, or most of Season 1 of The Next Generation. Or
I Season 1 and 2 for me of Next Gen are just painful.
There are some gems in there. Like the one where there's the crystalline organisms that call humans ugly bags of mostly water. That's a fun episode. There's some good episodes, but it's mostly trash. Although we did get to find out that Data is in fact fully functional and programmed in multiple techniques in a Season 1 episode, The Naked Now. So, thanks for letting us know about that, there, writers.
I mean, humans made him, of course he is.
Well, yeah, that's true. And
if there's one thing humans that like have as a common shared trait, it's they be horny.
It's true. Philipunk, half dog, half canine for $2 says, mining for Gould, it's a thing. Take a drink. You know what? I will take a drink for that. Thank you. Gary Bronson says, this dude is a great value sandwich bag with a few cocktail wieners in it. In other words, discount AIG. Take a drink for that, too. $5 Savage, aligning the water cobra, says, is the Young Creationist operated quote mine next to Hovind's spaghetti mine?
They're owned by the same company.
Yeah. They're the only profitable arm of Zion Oil and Gas.
Yeah, really.
I still love that Zion Oil and Gas were like, the Bible says that there should be riches in Israel, so we're going to buy up oil exploration rights in Israel. And the Israeli government was like, yeah, sure, give us some money for that. Great.
Mm-hmm.
And then they dug dry well after dry well and went bankrupt.
Oh, no.
Oh.
You look in a textbook, you'll see a tree of life like this. What?
I mean, I would hope it would be a better one, but why are dinosaurs diverging before frogs?
What? Yeah, this is not good.
This is really bad. Yeah, no. Mm-mm.
Is that?
I don't know. That's a good question. It looks like something you made up. This does not resemble any tree of life I've ever seen. For one thing, I've never heard anyone argue that frogs are more closely related to birds than birds are to T-Rex. Or it's probably Allosaurus. Never heard anyone argue that.
Yeah, I'm also really not okay with where they put some of the animals on this.
Yeah, it's really confusingly, bafflingly dumb.
It's like he went trees, mostly stuff that lives in the ocean or the sea, and then like a couple of fish, frog, like amphibians towards there because he thought like, oh, well, those turn into like lizard thingies and amphibian, and then he went dinosaurs, birds, everything else.
Yeah. Also, what is that orange blob that's above the trilobite?
I don't know. And like, is there any fungi on here? Like, what? No.
We have a coenoflagellate though, so that's nice.
This is baffling. I don't get it.
And it also starts with an amoebozoan, which is not only is it not the common ancestor of all animals, it's more closely related to animals than it is to plants. So it definitely shouldn't be at the base of the tree. Just all of this is really, really, really bad. Also,
draw a tree of life from memory, but if you're a creationist.
Seriously. Goodness. That reminds me, that cognitive test that has apparently become something that is significant for presidential candidates all of a sudden?
Mm-hmm.
One of the tests on that is just draw a clock, because it's actually a dementia test.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, hey, I passed a dementia test 5 years ago. It's like, okay, did you pass it this year?
Listen, I watched Hannibal. I know all about like the whole clock testing thing.
See, the thing is, when I'm old, I'm going to be like, I'm going to draw this clock, but like the numbers are going to be with Klingon numerals for some reason. I'm like, Dapper definitely has dementia. And I'm be like, Robert, Klingon Hornech. And I'm like, nah, that's definitely dementia.
He's slipping into glossolalia. Yeah.
Some goo? Who knows?
What are you talking about? I don't know.
How come we don't see...
What is this, goo? Yeah, he doesn't even understand his own crappy little chart there.
He really is discount Hovind.
Yeah.
Half this and half that. What's right there? What's right there? What's it? We just see fully formed fish, fully formed dinosaur, fully formed horse,
Once again, what does a half-formed any of these things look like?
Oh,
I've never heard a good explanation of that. It's a fully formed fish. Well, what would it look like if it were half-formed? Would it look like Cephalaspis, which doesn't have a jaw, doesn't have anal fins, it doesn't have pelvic fins, it only kind of has a dorsal fin? Is that a half-formed fish? I mean, it's a fully formed animal. I don't know. Let's see. This is the Savage aligning the water cobra for $2 says, this is the Richard Carrier of Trees of Why. Oh, Richard Carrier. I'm so happy that we successfully made Richard Carrier a meme, meaning the worst and dumbest version of a thing.
You know what's funny is in my history class this week, we were, reading through various texts about whatever the class topic was, and they mentioned Daniel Boyarin, and I had a flashback because one of the earliest Richard Carrier incidents that our corner of YouTube picked up on was that he just couldn't understand Daniel Boyarin. And when I'm typing Boyarin mentioned in the chat, no one understood it. And I was like, oh, right. Oh, yeah, they don't know about all this.
Yeah, they're not plugged into your particular weird corner of YouTube. Yeah, oh well. But hey, Kip's in the chat. Hi, Kip.
Hey! He was summoned.
We'll temporarily... Actually, I mean, we're almost done, so I'll just put that Kip in since he's in the chat.
Well, he also had a premiere on another channel, which is probably why he wasn't here the whole time, so...
All right, here we go.
Formed human. Show me the half human, half apes,
Okay. Hey,
Show me the half dog, half mammal.
Hey, Pibblepunk, where you at? Come here, Pibblepunk,
Yeah,
half
really.
dog, half canine. But also, I mean, a number of transitional hominins are in this animation, or not animation, but this slideshow that you can see above Vishanti. They're just right there. Right, it's just right there.
Kip knew it. He knew exactly what I was talking about. Shamaites were one of the 31 Jewish sects that we know of.
Yeah, Elusive Man points out he wants to see a crocodile, which, by the way, Elusive Man, it feels like it's like long time no see. I feel like you haven't been around for a while, so welcome back, man. Now,
He's
of course,
elusive.
well, that's true. Also, possibly indoctrinated.
Oh.
Yeah, he might be a Reaper plant. That reminds me. Do you know the Mass Effect plot?
Only in extremely vague, broad.
We might have to find a way for you to experience that plot that isn't interminably boring, because I assume you don't want to play it. But yeah, we got to figure out a way to get you to experience that plot. This is actually really good. There's a reason that a lot of people were unironically comparing it to like a new generation Star Wars in terms of like, people roughly your age, because I'm a lot older, and like sci-fi epics and whatnot.
So
we're not the same age. I'm much older than you because of 150 million years.
Fully formed things. You don't see these transitionals. So a better...
We see those transitions. Could you just glance up for me just for a second? Yeah, there it is.
Pattern of life would be something like this. Now follow me on this. Just watch this illustration for just a minute, because I think this will click. This will make sense to you. You have a group of organisms.
Well, we're going to let him finish, and then we're going to close this up, just letting everyone know.
And call them dogs, and there's a variety, right? But they're all quite close to each other. There's a big gap between them and the cats, and a big gap between them and the pigs, for example. Just to give
this is just his tree of life, but he didn't put the tree on it. Got it.
Okay.
you three things.
Also, thanks for putting the Mudkip Davis on the set.
Of course.
It's cute.
All these three are closer together. They're all mammals. Then maybe over here, the reptiles. You have snakes, and you have lizards, and you have dinosaurs. There's gaps between them, but they're clustered closer, and there's this huge gap between them and the mammals. Now,
the lines aren't part of the tree, my dude. We infer them.
Mm-hmm.
Data.
I mean,
now,
I know you don't like that, but too bad.
Yeah.
You can draw a tree around this, and that would be your evolutionist's interpretation, where the tree kind of comes down through here, or you can take that.
It looks even worse in grayscale. How is that even possible?
Yeah, it does.
Ugh.
Same thing.
Also, it wouldn't be one giant trunk like that. There's way more branches that develop into branches. Like, this tree sucks. Yeah.
You can say, we're going to draw a creationist interpretation where the dogs have always been dogs, the cats have always been cats, and the horses have always been horses.
Well, show me the half dog, half mammal.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to close it up here with that amazing display of brilliance. We did not get to the feeder cuffs. I believe we were off by, let's see, 56. Someone wants to like super chat $56. We're probably not getting new feeders. Hey, you know what? Sometimes people super chat $50 just to get to a goal. So it happens. I
know that. I'm just like, I'm not going to encourage that because that's a lot of money.
It is. But I mean, if that's what you want, if you want to spend that to see Vishanti in more beautiful feeder cuffs, you can. But anyway, Vishanti, do you have anything coming up that you want people to know about?
It's mostly just real life stuff. I'm going to be in Texas. For most of the week.
I actually just
but I get to see my family, so terrible.
I got a message from someone in Texas just last night, like, Texas. I'm like, yeah, no, I know. You moved there. This is on you. It's like, yeah, but I don't like it. I'm like,
if any of your viewers are near San Antonio, hit me up, I guess.
Okay. There you go. Okay. On this channel, if I stop coughing, let's see. What do we have? So, oh yes, David Gottlieb, Incoherent Shouting Moron, the movie is coming out this next week. Also, Kent with Bent on Tuesday. So Tuesday is going to be Kent with Bent at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Then, David Gottlieb, Incoherent Shouting Moron on Thursday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And then Saturday, the plan is to just do more of this, but I believe Vishanti may not be here.
For what?
For Saturday, or are you going to be back by Saturday?
No, I'll be back.
Well,
No,
in
I'm
that
coming back
case,
on Friday morning.
there you go. Probably have
Yeah.
Ashanti back. Unless she doesn't want to.
Yeah,
which I
I'm
would
leaving
understand.
like Tuesday night, and I'm coming back Friday morning. So it's
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I would say enjoy, but you're not going to. I'm not going to bother.
I mean, I'm gonna enjoy seeing my family, but
Mostly.
I don't enjoy funerals.
Yeah. Actually, I kind of weirdly did enjoy my grandmother's wake, because it was mostly just all of my cousins standing around telling stories that were funny about
Yeah,
my grandmother, and that was actually pretty good.
I'm going to enjoy the meals. I'm going to enjoy sitting around just shooting shit with my cousins and my uncles and aunts and whatever. I'm just not going to enjoy the parts that require me to physically go inside a Roman Catholic church and do stuff. So,
Well, you don't have to do much of the stuff. You gotta have to be there.
I know. I'm probably I'm going to be there, just probably not inside for the whole time.
Bring a book.
I do.
Okay.
I will.
All right. Well, first, I'm sure everyone in the audience, as well as I, offer our condolences. I'm sorry for your loss. It is not fun.
I'm a last grandparent.
Yeah, I had that happen not that long ago. I mean, of my adopted human family. Obviously, my dinosaur grandparents, long time ago. But of the adopted human family. So, my condolences on that. But hey, that is what's happening for the next week here. Again, Patreon for me. There's also Patreon for Bent in the description. There's wishlist for me, Bent Hovind, and Vishanti in the description. There's a merch store. Check that out. And yeah. You want to get me a Worf mug or a Star Trek book or something? It's right there. If you want to get Vishanti, I mean, she's got a whole bunch of books that are much more like highbrow and less silly than mine. But
I mean, there's also some like random practical stuff on there too.
you should put some Vampire the Masquerade books in.
Yeah, there's been a whole bunch of them since I last
I know.
played actively.
Renegade Games
Like the
keeps
last
sending me
books
emails
that
about them.
the last book that I bought was right before the Sabbat book came out, and then there's just been so many since then. I'm like, oh my god, there's like 30. What happened in the last 3 years? Oh my
Put
god.
them on the wish list. All right, everybody,
Yeah.
thank you so much. If you are interested after this on the Discord server for members and patrons, we will be doing Power Rangers Dino Thunder, complete with Dr. O, which is in fact Tommy Oliver, who has abandoned his career as a race car driver to get a PhD in paleontology and then become a high school biology teacher, who is also the mentor to a team of superheroes. Very busy life.
Cool. Yeah.
Other than that, guys, stay safe out there. Hey, tomorrow is Easter for most Christians that are going to be in my audience, or just most people who observe Christian holidays despite not being Christian who are in my audience, which is going to be a lot of people because, Christianity is sort of the cultural hegemony in terms of religious stuff in the US and Canada and most of Europe. So if you are celebrating Easter tomorrow, then happy Easter. If you're celebrating the real Easter in a month and a half or something, then happy Lent or something. I don't know. All right. We're going to get out of here before I say more stupid stuff. Bye, everybody.
Okay.
Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Ben Hovind, Felgavara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, E2V, Strawberry Vein, Denny5252, Elron Teller, Horseflesh, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostick Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, Monkey They Them, Sphincter of Doom, and Volus. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.